Hello, people of Ericus. I am Blaze, the CEO of the new Halge City News Broadcasting Corporation. I'm here with United Ericus Party leader, Mr. Meyer. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great, Blaze. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, shall we get started?
Of course.
What sets your party apart from the PSP and the NWP?
That's a pretty big question to start off with, but I'll try to unpack it.
Well, that's what we're here for, to ask the hard questions.
Absolutely. I think what really sets my party apart is how we came about. My party, as I'm sure many of your viewers know, came about a bit later than most of the other parties. We had two communist or socialist parties that came about, and I came about looking at that and thinking that we just needed another option. There was a lot of a lot of ideologues that really want to jump on that bandwagon. But I think we need people in government who are going to be common sense about this. We need people who are going to be united. And that's why I named it the United Euricus Party, because we need people who are going to unite, not just Aries, not just Halogens. We need people who are going to unite this whole country and work together across the aisle to get stuff done for the good of the people.
That's very
That's
nice. It's
very nice.
very good to hear. So, why do you think people, or rather voters, should vote for you over, say Mr. Flint or Mr. Jim of the NWP and PSP, respectively?
Well, look, so as I'm sure you guys can all check in the Discord, it's a much smaller party. As of present, I'm the most outspoken proponent of it, and there's people who I've been talking to in private that have been vocal supporters. But the thing is, with big parties, you don't get that personal touch. And I think with my party, you can really get involved. You can really find things that no matter what part of society you're in, whether you're interested in building up our culture, our economy, whether you built it up like our buildings, no matter where you are, there is a place for you in this party. And though you might be casting your vote for some massive party that might not even know who you are, when you're casting your vote with the AUP, the UAP, you are casting your vote with people who know you and who will represent you.
So, you brought about the Halgens and the Airy, and there have been some rumors that your party is exclusively for Aries. Is this true?
That could not be farther from the truth. So if you look at the way this is currently set up, our political system, we have two parties. They're currently very, very together on a lot of issues, but what separates them is who is involved in those parties. One is seemingly a party exclusively for Airy. One of them is a party exclusively for the new crowd, the Halgens, and the new people who were incorporating into the borders of this country. And though, of course, it's great that you're aligning yourself with people who agree with you and represent you ethnically, I think we need to get past that. This is a country that, if we are going to move forward, we need to be united. Just like with the name of our party, we aim to make that unity possible. We are a party for anyone of any ideology.
So the way I understand it, your party is definitely promoting infrastructure and construction of our country.
That's exactly
How
right.
how are you going to make sure that this country is able to attain the resources and able to uphold building standards across the entire nation?
Well, so I've already outlined a piece of major legislation that I think as soon as I get into the parliament, I'm going to be passing. I've already spoken with various party leaders, and they seem quite on board with passing that legislation unilaterally through the parliament. And essentially, the thing is this: we are going to make a united infrastructure department that will work for the whole country. And that's going to take two forms. So the first is going to work with the builders. We're going to find people who want buildings built, and we're going to find the people who can build them for them. And they're going to work closely in tandem, and we're going to find out what those buildings are, and we're going to make them look good, and we're going to make our cities look beautiful. Now, the second half is what's going to mobilize our builders to work, because if we don't have resources, how are we going to do anything? So the second half of that department is going to be an agency that runs an internal market. So how that's essentially going to function is we're going to start off with just the basic resources. We're going to start off with bricks. We're going to start off with stone. We're going to start off with various types of wood. We're going to start off with everything you need to make a beautiful building. And we're going to price it fairly, far below market value. And what we're going to do is we're going to have various people in the community, they're going to sell through the area market to make sure that we can have that kept within our borders. And that way, various builders and certain citizens can then buy from that market at cheaper costs. Now, it's going to be fair. You're going to be making money still. We're not going to try and steal your resources or anything like that. But that's going to make sure that when people are building, they're going to be building at fair costs that are far cheaper than you can build anywhere across this world.
That's very nice to hear. But how are you going to ensure that people don't abuse this to just so that people from other countries don't come to our market or our, I guess, resource depositories and just collect our resources and not pay the average market price for those resources?
That's a great question. So there certainly is that concern with security. So, of course, in the opening days, it might be very difficult. But as this market develops, as we're going to expand into more and more products, we need to make sure that we're working for our people. And though, of course, we want to be an international country that can support a lot of different people, of course, our key concern is our citizens, the people we represent. So we're going to find ways to make it more secure. We're going to find ways that we might have, I'm just spitballing here. We might have like key codes, like every citizen has a paper that they can put into a detector that will make sure that only the people, we might have it be underground somewhere in a specialized location that will make sure that only our citizens know exactly where that is. In the early days, we are going to have to put a lot of faith in people. We're going to have to know that the people of this country are going to use that market, and that people from other countries are going to respect our sovereignty. But as we build up this market, we will have to put up more infrastructure in place to make it possible.
Um, Earlier you mentioned this large developmental ministry, if you will.
Yeah.
And earlier, I spoke with Mr. Flint of the NWP, and he currently seems to be the front runner for being the chancellor. And he stated
Mhm.
how he would love to have you become the infrastructure minister. Would you be willing to accept this position? And if so, what would you do as infrastructure minister?
It would be my pleasure, let me first say, to be the infrastructure minister. It would be a great honor to that legislation that I'm trying to spearhead to be the most vocal proponent of it in the legislature, and then to get into the executive to run it. As I mentioned earlier, I've been working with various party leaders, and Flint is the key person of that. I've shared with him the wording of the legislation. I asked him not to steal it. I want it to be firmly our party's. However, he seemed very on board with getting that through the legislature with me. And should he invite me to be in that role, I would gladly take it. Now, on that second part of your question, what I plan on doing as infrastructure minister, really in the early days, it's just going to be getting our footing, finding qualified builders and setting them up with people who want things built. Because let's be honest, there's a lot of people with big dreams who might not know how to execute that. We don't want it to be unreasonably priced for people who want just a solid house and a solid home to have in this city. So we're going to set them up with government sanctioned builders. We're then going to work with the lords and work with the citizens themselves to make sure that it fits in with the community and fits in with exactly what they need. And then, of course, as I also mentioned, we're going to set up that internal market, and I'm going to try and appoint people downstream that can work more closely with each of those certain branches of the ministry so that we can make sure that everything is being tended to. And I certainly look forward to each citizen helping support and feed into that ministry.
Oh, that's very very nice. Very good to hear, especially. Let's move on to what would you, I mean, if you were to become chancellor, or rather, if you could pass certain parts of legislation, what would you pass?
So, as I'm saying this whole time, a key piece of legislature is that infrastructure part. We really want to get this
Yes,
city, and
but
that is our chief concern to build up. However, there is also a lot of other legislation that I think we do need to get passed. Namely, I know we're trying to build up currently our military, and I think that's a very important part of this country. If we want to be respected on world stage, we need to be able to compete on that world stage. We need to build up our economy, we need to build up our culture. And that culture is another key piece of our platform at the UAP. We want to make scheduled rallies and festivals that we know that all of our citizens can at least come to a few of those every now and then so that we make sure that we're feeling involved in the community. And of course, if I was made chancellor, I would happily support other parties coming up with certain bills, and as is our party platform, working with them to get those bills passed if they are in the good interest of people of Ericus, because we're not just a party for those of our voters. We're a party for this whole country, and we're going to work with everyone to make sure the best things get passed across the board.
that's ama- that's frankly amazing to hear. But you're talking about the culture and economy in general terms. Can I get some specifics on, say, the economic platform that your party would take on? Because I know currently, with the NWP and the PSP, you have these uh, socialist values, if you will. Um, are you would you promote this kind of social liberalism that they're going for, or would you go for more of a conservative capitalist economy?
I'm going to real quick sum it up. What we're going to do is we're going to bring in foreign investors, people who have valuable resources and, of course, the monetary capital that we need to build up this country. We're going to bring their investments into this country through privatized business. We're not going to try and be socialist. However, of course, we want to make sure that key resources are offered through an internal market that will have a certain high degree of government control.
And this market, would it be accessible on a global scale, or would it just be dedicated for our citizens in the same way of that resource depot you were talking about earlier?
Exactly. So we are going to have private companies will certainly be able to open up and have those like building resources, like I was saying. However, for our own citizens, we're going to have that cheaper cost that we foster in the internal market. Now, there is a concern. I'll just be honest with that. If we are having an internal market and an external market, the external market will likely have higher costs, um, higher selling costs. So our own citizens might feel inclined to go and sell their goods there rather than filling up our internal market. That being said, we are going to work routinely. We're going to have a designated agent to do this within the Department of Infrastructure to make sure that our prices are not only below market price to buy, but they're also going to be higher than market price to sell, so that we're always the right option is to focus domestically.
Now, going back to a previous point of yours, um,
Mhm.
how exactly would you promote culture through legislation?
Culture through legislation. That's a great point. So a lot of culture, what it comes down to is you can't legislate culture because culture a major point of culture is it happens organically. However, what we need to do within the legislation is to provide a lot of opportunities for that organic culture to form. That's why I'm talking about festivals. We're going to offer a lot of opportunities for festivals to take hold. We're also going to provide a lot of opportunities for certainly not a state religion. We want everybody to have their freedom on that regard. However, for certain religions to have platforms to gain followers and to build up a certain culture that will unite all of us, and perhaps not even unite all of us. We might have certain regional cultures. However, it's important to provide those opportunities in the legislation to make sure that that can get passed.
That's very intuitive of
It's
you.
very intuitive.
Are you interested in the chancellorship?
Now, I'm just going to be realistic with you. I currently don't think the chancellorship is in the cards for this party. We're starting out small, and I think that's one of our greatest advantages, but I also think the chancellorship currently just is not in the cards for us. That being said, I certainly think in the future the chancellorship would be a great boon for this party, and if you give to this party, a great boon for this country, because with that, we'll be able to work. as I keep saying, across the aisle, making sure that the best policies are passed regardless of who's proposing them. Because I want to make sure that with this party, we're not focusing on ideological priorities. We're focusing on the priorities of the people. And what that means is that we are going to find the best ideas that are proposed by any citizen, by any party, and we're going to get those passed efficiently with a lot of votes behind them.
How what would be your long-term goal? As you're saying, don't see the chancellorship as a possibility at this point in time, but say in the future, how would the road to the chancellorship be for the UAP?
So, well, of course, the first major point for any road to the chancellorship is, of course, getting more support, getting more of the people to see our party as a viable contender, and then after we get that checkpoint, we're going to get more votes, and we're going to eventually get a lot of support from even parties that are in name are rivals, and we're going to get them to put their support behind our party because they know that our party and our party alone is going to be the one who is working with every single person from every single background, from every single economic situation, from every single political view. We're going to be working with everyone. So, first, as I said, we got to get that support from within our own ranks. And then, second, we know that the parties are going to eventually line up with us because they know that we are going to be the most um, eager to compromise, eager to benefit everyone.
Hmm. So currently, there is discussion around a possible debate between all of the major party leaders. Would you
Mhm.
be interested in taking part in this debate?
Absolutely. As of currently, I don't know the time, so I'd have to see about that, if it would work with my schedule and a lot of my valuable priorities. But I would certainly love to engage in that debate because I think a debate is the best opportunity for us to compare our parties, compare our platforms, and certainly to compare the leaders of the party. Because I think a major thing about who's running the party that majorly affects what gets passed and what they decide isn't as much of a priority. So I certainly would be in favor of that debate, and I hope, given my availability, I would certainly love to attend.
How do you feel in regards to the how do you feel in regards to the power of the monarch over politics?
So here's the thing. I think I was a major voice when it came to writing the Constitution. I didn't write the original draft, I'll say. I was a major voice before the whole political debacle went down that's led to our current situation. But other great minds worked on the original draft, and I certainly looked it over. I believe I offered some valuable criticisms and some viable places that we could
Especially when it
uh,
came to the word
build on that.
relegate.
Yes, I found the grammatical tense of that incorrect, and I wanted to make sure that this country is made great right from its inception. So I thought any grammar tenses, we might want to make sure that's fixed up. But more directly to the point, I think the monarch has ample power right now to make sure that the priorities of this country are getting across. I think they're great as an executive and as a judicial head. I believe that we'll have to see with precedent how much they leave the runnings of Parliament up to Parliament. I believe it's best if the monarch stays out of Parliament because while the monarch is strong and stable and will forever keep in mind the needs of the country, I think it's very important that the representatives, the ones exactly voted, are the ones who are handling the day-to-day measures and runnings of the country. I think the monarch's great. What I will say is there's one major concern that didn't exactly get across that I've voiced repeatedly in the Constitution. I am concerned about the divide between plain citizens and the free men of this country. I think it's very important for every voice to be heard, no matter how high their economic standing is, no matter how their social standing is. But of course, we'll just have to get those voices heard another way through their petitioning of the parliament, perhaps not taking part in many votes, because as I understand it, that's a bit restricted, but we're certainly going to make sure that in the UAP their voices are heard and they are not considered second class in any sense of the word.
How do you feel about the Grand Magistrate's authority within government and especially over her primary domain, culture?
Well, I'll just say this: the Grand Magistrate has served us well for, um, well, I'm just gonna call it. We're on good terms. Panda has been a she's been a great help in this country. She's really built us and brought us through a lot of tough situations. She's she really is the core of what this community means. She knows everyone, she speaks to everyone personally, and I think that's great that she is helping to run this culture because, as I said, culture is not something you can force. It happens organically, and I think Panda will really let that shine. Uh, our Grand Magistrate will certainly help this culture develop and really make this place a great place to be, not just politically, but culturally, and make it a very rich place.
And my final question for you, um, how do you feel about the future of Ericus?
Uh, what words can even describe it? I see the future of Ericus very bright. I see we're getting a lot of immigrants. We've got a very strong native population, and I see those cultures merging beautifully and having a lot of intermixing that I think will make us stronger in the long term. I see us economically developing. I see us having a lot of political development because after this constitution's been ratified, we've now got a big opportunity and we've got a big challenge. I'm going to just say it. We've got to make sure that we handle this right because this is what lays the groundwork for what happens in the future. So we need to make sure that right now, the chances we're making today are going to lead to a brighter future. But certainly, I see the future of this country very bright and very prosperous.
And finally, if you can say anything to the people of Ericus, say it right into the camera now.
Well, here's what I'm going to say. I've been saying it this whole time. There's lots of ideologies that are going on in many political parties, but I think we need to cut straight to the core of it. We need to cut straight to what is going to help the people, and that is what the UAP is all about. We're not here to establish communism, socialism, or any ideology like that. We're here to help you. We're here to make your life a better place, and that is why you should give the UAP. You should trust the UAP with your vote.
Well, this has been Blaze of the New Halge
Of the new
Times
hall.
signing off. Thank you.